time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does. Good to have you with us on this Thursday edition of the show. Thank you, Chad Erickson. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Nick Esayian is the CEO of Light Helmets. They're one of 4 different manufacturers that create helmets for the NFL. He will stop by the show. Part of my conversation with him, part of a much larger conversation involving helmets, helmet safety, all of that around football. We'll also have a conversation with Jenn Mueller, who does a great job on the Seahawks sidelines, pre and post game for their radio broadcasts with Root Sports, our friends in Seattle. She will join us as well. And so will David Aardsma, who stops by the show to talk some Major League Baseball. With just a handful of games left in the Major League Baseball season, we will talk about how badly MLB screwed it up, in my opinion, when it comes to the Braves, the Mets, and basically taking a 162-game season and screwing it up in the final 5 days. We'll talk about that as well. But we start things out in the NFL with a huge Thursday night game to kick off Week 4, and Sam Yarnell is here to talk about that with us. I can honestly make an argument for both of these teams. I say this all the time. I'm like an attorney. I can argue both sides of anything. I could talk about the Giants very easily being 2-1 through the first 3 games. And I know we talked about this yesterday, and you kind of shrugged it off. The 2 losses they have suddenly don't look that bad when one is against Minnesota, who's one of the best teams in the league right now, and Washington, who we saw get a win in Cincinnati against the Bengals the other night. It's not that far of a stretch to say, the Giants have a couple of tough losses on their schedule. They won on the road in Cleveland. And Daniel Jones, outside of the pick 6 in Week 1, has been more than serviceable. Is he living up to the contract? Absolutely not. Did they overpay him? Absolutely. But, I can make the argument that the Giants find a way to hang around in this game and steal it late. As for the Cowboys, it's easy to make the argument the way they played in the fourth quarter, carry that over with them coming into New York, play against the Giants team. By the way, defensively, the Giants have been pretty good. Outside of that Week 1 loss against Minnesota, the Cowboys in a must-win situation. It has to feel desperate for them, even though it is just the start of Week 4. Make your case for both teams either way.
Yeah, so as much as you made your case for both teams to win, I'll make my case for both teams to lose, because I do think there's a realistic possibility
glass half
this
empty
game.
Guy.
Exactly. Yeah, this game just becomes the lesser of 2 evils, and it's just really ugly football. Because at the end of the day, as much as the Giants are as close as they are to 2-1, they're equally as close to 0-3. A 6-point victory against a Cleveland Browns team where Deshaun Watson turned the ball over twice in the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly. The Giants easily could be in the same spot that the Cowboys should be, which is 0-3. Like the Cowboys team, and again, I've said this to people off the air around the NFL so far this season, and it feels like there's a large agreement with the statement. The Cowboys this year, Jason, they just feel like just another team. It doesn't feel like they have any prowess that sets them apart from the rest of the pack. CeeDee Lamb is still a great wide receiver, but when you've got a pedestrian quarterback like Dak Prescott throwing him the ball all season, you're only going to get so much out of him. I do think it's interesting that we compare Daniel Jones and his contract to the worst contract ever. Folks, Dak Prescott's getting paid more money. He's thrown the same amount of touchdowns and the same amount of interceptions as Daniel Jones this season. When we talk about quarterbacking, Jason, this is one of the worst matchups the league has to offer.
Come on,
we're talking
it's
about
not
2
that.
guys
Hold on, time out. We just had Anthony Richardson and was it Caleb Williams? Was that Chicago and Indianapolis this past week, right? That was the game in Week 3. That was pretty bad. That was really bad. I'm not going to go. I can't put Dak Prescott in a game and say one of the worst quarterback matchups. I just can't do it.
So that game this weekend was between 2 guys who have been top 5 picks in back-to-back years leading into this season. Dak Prescott and Daniel Jones have won a combined 3 playoff games in their combined 14 years in the league. Both of those rough estimations, I know that the number of total playoff wins is not going to be higher than that, but I think it's 14 combined years in the league. I can't get all the way there on either of these quarterbacks. And I know all offseason, all the talk is, oh, Dak Prescott, who's going to pay him? Is he just going to play this season out in Dallas and then get paid somewhere else? Nowhere else was going to pay him. The rest of the league recognizes Dak Prescott for what he is, a pedestrian quarterback. He's fine. He's average. He's not great. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not he's not Joe Burrow. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not even in that second tier when we're talking about really good quarterbacks and team-altering quarterbacks. So, again, I think both of these teams could lose this game tonight. Jason, you're exactly right.
I'm not going to say pedestrian. I can't go there. Guy with 36-9-23, 37-10-21, 30-11-19. I mean, he's not a pedestrian quarterback. 23-4-16. I mean, he's not a pedestrian quarterback. Look, do I think you're going to win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott? No. But I think there's a lot of guys with really good numbers that I could say that about. So I'm not going to, I just can't, like you say, I can't get all the way there. I can't get all the way there on the idea of average or pedestrian when it comes to Dak Prescott. Now, you want to have that conversation with Daniel Jones. It's another thing entirely. I will also say this. I am curious to see if they can give Daniel Jones enough time tonight. Because if they do, Malik Neighbors showed himself in that Cleveland game. That dude can ball. That guy can play. And it'll be exciting for him on a big stage on this Thursday night game on Prime Video tonight to see if he can show up and make some plays that give Giants fans some hope. Because I always say this: there's two types of quarterbacks in this league. Quarterbacks that enhance their receivers and quarterbacks that need great receivers to enhance them. And I think obviously Daniel Jones is the latter more than he is the former. And I think Neighbors has the potential to kind of help Daniel Jones work his way through this season. And Devin Singletary can do just enough that the Giants might be able to scrap together some wins. Again, that defense is pretty good. I think this is going to be a close game tonight. Just to foreshadow a little bit, what we're going to talk about a little later on in odds and ends when we get to the betting on this game. I think this game actually winds up being fairly close tonight.
You make a good point about the offensive line, and that made me do a little bit of research. Just a quick gander across PFF, Draft Shark, Sharp Football Analysis, and Huddle. The Giants have the worst offensive line through 4 weeks in the NFL. Yeah, that's not going to bode well for Daniel Jones. And that's asking a lot of Daniel Jones. When you criticize him, you have to look at what they've put around him. We're coming back with David Aardsma to talk Major League Baseball next. We take it to segment 2 on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. Let's talk some baseball. Obviously, a lot going on in these final couple of days of the regular season. I said at the beginning of the week, weather was going to play a big factor in this final week of the season, and oh, has it. Let's bring in our friend David Aardsma, former MLB reliever, SiriusXM radio, MLB radio host, personality. He's a personality. Yeah, we're giving him the personality moniker.
I got a little personality.
Oh, you do?
A little bit.
Absolutely. I learned that this weekend. It was kind of funny. So let's talk, David, about this Atlanta Mets situation where you've got weather wreaking havoc. Obviously, Hurricane Helene. We hope everybody stays safe down there in the Southeast, especially our friends watching on Peachtree Sports Network, where our show airs every day while you're eating dinner. Hope you guys all stay safe down there. But as it relates to baseball, I mean, got to be frustrating. You play 157 games. Your season basically comes down to a handful of games at the end of the year, and you have no control over the weather winds up doing to you, where these games wind up getting played. Doubleheaders. We all know the math on how difficult it is to sweep doubleheaders, how much of a disadvantage you're at as a team when you have to play a doubleheader. At a time of the year where you need wins, how problematic is this?
It's tough. It is really tough. It's tough for both the Mets and the Braves. It's nothing that Major League Baseball wants. It's nothing that the players want. At the end of the day, though, if we do have to play these games and everything's tied, and maybe the Diamondbacks have the lead, so now it's between the Mets and the Braves. You couldn't ask for a better day of baseball. If that's one of those things that it comes down to where everything's on the wire and everybody's watching one game, and then if somebody wins, they have to play another one. This is going to be exciting no matter how you put it. But at the same time, at the end of the day, the ball is in the Mets court and the Diamondbacks. They control their destiny. If they want to win out, if they win the rest of the season, they don't have to play these games, right? If they sit there and get it done when it matters, that's all that matters. Now the Mets and the Braves both have tough opponents before they even get those games. With the Royals, with the Braves have to play the Royals, and the Mets have to play the Brewers. Those aren't guaranteed by any means. Those are good baseball teams.
But David, did Major League Baseball botch this? In that they knew what was coming down the pike. Everybody, for hell, 5 days out, could see where this hurricane was headed with some degree of certainty. Should they have taken the games and moved them away sooner to make sure you're keeping the integrity of this final handful of games of the regular season?
That's tough. That's really tough to do. And it's really tough to do to the Atlanta fans, right? To the Atlanta crowd, the everyone there to take those games away. So many hurricanes, so many things happen in the Gulf Coast that it changes directions. I can't imagine them moving the game and then it not being an issue. I mean, if you're Atlanta, they're not going to get the games
anyway. No matter what these games were getting rained out, you're not going to get the. You're going to lose the games. Why not at least maintain some integrity? They're still going to get their last at bat in the bottom of the ninth, no matter where you play the game, and you avoid the doubleheader problem. To me, it just feels like they weren't proactive enough in terms of how to handle the situation.
I will give you that. The rain, no matter what's going to happen. And Major League Baseball has a precedent of going out and changing the game and moving the games in case of weather and being proactive. That's the only thing I see on this is if we saw this coming, if we saw the rain, why not pick somewhere? Just pick somewhere, play these games, because we can still get a couple of the games in. I will give you that. That's my only issue with it. No matter what the rain was going to come, travel is going to be an issue no matter what. Pick somewhere, do it in New York, and next year, the Braves get 2 more games. It's simple solutions. That's the only thing I don't like is Major League Baseball. There's simple solutions. They could have handled it.
The Yankees are going to win this division, right? I mean, they're not going to cough away a 4-game lead in the final 4 days, right? Okay.
No, they're not. But again, it's New York. Everyone in New York wants to sit here and go, "Oh, the Yankees are going to do something." No, they're gonna handle business. They're too good of a baseball team.
How about Detroit? I mean, it's amazing. They are on the verge of closing the book on this fairy tale chapter in their storied history. It does make me wonder, though, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. It almost makes me wonder, why the hell do we play 162 games when a team could play well for 40 to 45 of them and make the playoffs? It does feel like it makes the regular season a little more irrelevant.
It does make it feel like it. At the end of the day, that's why we talk about all these wins matter. All of these wins matter. The win in April 1st, the win in September 30th, they matter. And that's the thing these teams have to go out there and realize. You want to go play good baseball all year. It's a game of attrition. It's not a sprint. It's a game of attrition. That's why some teams can build up those big leads and be coasting into the end of the year. The Orioles. The Orioles coasted into the playoffs. Luckily, by the way, they were not playing good baseball. But then you look at these teams like the Tigers. At the end of the day, too, they were a good team all year. They were just under the radar. They were a good team. They were under the radar in a bad division. We all knew that the AL Central was going to be probably one of the weakest divisions as far as wins. And the White Sox didn't help anybody by sitting there and losing.
Oh, they helped a lot of teams.
Games.
They helped to the tune of about 120 wins for other teams.
Right. And the Royals and the Tigers and the Twins took advantage of it. But then now we're sitting here watching it and saying the Twins are the team we should be talking about. The Twins failing they were built for the playoffs. They were built to win this division. And they're the ones that I'm sitting there circling saying, underperformed. And the Tigers, we're talking about the Tigers at an 84-74 team. 84 and 74 shouldn't be going into the playoffs when you have a team like the Twins who are built for the playoffs.
Before I let you go, I got to ask you about this because you have to appreciate the Pirates on the cheap. This Roddy Tellis story, they cut him 4 at-bats shy of what would have been a $200,000 bonus. I mean, other guys got to look at this around baseball and say, why would I want to go play for a team that does crap like this?
Rowdy Tellez, I feel bad for you. At the same time, and everybody knows this, he's going to get his money. They're going to go into arbitration. They're going to go there. They're having an arbitrator be like, dude, this is money in your pocket. He's going to get a check. Why? That's why I don't understand. It's sending such a bad message across the league when you're going to have to pay him no matter what, because you can't sit here and wait till this moment and designate him right before those bonuses. The same thing happened to me with the Braves. I had 2 bonuses coming up and I got released. And it's very frustrating. And at least it's gotten out there a little bit that happened to me. I didn't say anything for a long time, and I didn't want to say it. Another player said something on a show, and it got out there. It is one of the most frustrating things to me. If you don't like the contract, don't sign it. I say that as a player and as an owner.
David, I always appreciate it, my friend. Enjoy the final few days of the regular season. This Thursday edition of Sports Wrap rolls on. Nick Esayian will join us. He's the CEO of Light Helmet. We'll talk with him coming up in about 10 minutes, get some thoughts about the helmet space and technology and trying to prevent concussions. It's a topic that is near and dear to me. So we'll talk with Nick coming up in a few minutes on the show. Happy to bring in our friend, speaking of football, the one and only Jenn Mueller is hanging out with us on the show. She does a great job on the Seahawks radio broadcast. You also know her from Root Sports. She's got the great cooking show on Root Sports. We are mates on Root Sports. We're both on there. So yes. I always love talking to our friend Jenn Mueller, who hangs out with us. And boy, I don't care how enthused you were about this Seahawks team. Did you have them being 3-0 coming out of the gate?
I didn't necessarily have them being 3-0. I thought maybe week 1 and week 2 would be kind of an easier, kind of landing spot for them, right? To just kind of get a feel for what was going on. Boy, I didn't see what was coming there in Miami. And it's a fun team, which I know people are going to look at opponents. They're going to look at quarterbacks and say, the Seahawks haven't proven anything yet. I actually have some points that are counter. And all I will tell you is it has just been really fun to watch this team come together and know that there's so much more. Yeah. And I mean, look, there's 5 3-0 teams, and they're probably the one getting the least respect, Jen. If you look at the odds to last team standing, to stay undefeated, all of that stuff, they're probably the one getting the least respect. Give me the counter to that, because there are people out there that are saying this is all smoke and mirrors. It's early. Yeah, but it's not, because there were opportunities in each one of those games to completely fall apart, right? And we're not even just looking at the players on the field. I'm talking about from a coaching perspective. You knew kind of what you had in the players, right? Because you've got a track record for all of those guys. What you had no idea coming into the season was, how would this coaching staff respond, right? How was Mike McDonald as a head coach? How was he as a communicator, not only in calling the defense, but in installing his defense, which is really complicated. You were asking guys to do a lot. And right now you have seen that defense has performed. It was 205 yards last week. It was 231 in week 1. And it was a little over 300 against the Patriots. A lot of that was New England selling it out in the run game, and you limited one of the backs, and there was a little bit more going on. I would say that in each one of these games, there has been an opportunity for things to go sideways with play calling, for the team to fall apart, for them to be undisciplined, for them to make mistakes. And it hasn't happened. In fact, it's the other way around. They've come together. They have made adjustments. It is a really resilient group, and it is a group of play callers that has proven that they can change and they can put playmakers in the best position. Give me the difference in the day-to-day being around this team and traveling with them and all of that with Mike McDonald versus Pete Carroll, the biggest contrast. I think the biggest contrast is Mike Macdonald is very direct in his communication, in his assessment. You could get some storytelling from Pete. You would get some laughter from Pete. Maybe he would expound on an answer or two. That is not Mike Macdonald. Mike Macdonald wants to get down to business. He's got a lot that he is trying to accomplish in the day. I think the other big difference is attention to detail and teaching that aspect of it. That is not to say that it wasn't good under Pete. I think part of that is inherent when you bring in a new regime and when you have so many guys with experience coaching in college. And I'm thinking about like our offensive side of things, and Ryan Grubb is the offensive coordinator. You are used to having practices run where there is attention to detail and a lot of teaching happening. That is what we are seeing. And I think that it's paying off because you've got a guy like Charles Cross, who's now 3 years in or in his third year. And he said, look, not only am I able to have enough football under my belt that this all makes sense, but I have some additional techniques that are helping me in the game as well. And that goes back to how often they drill fundamentals and attention to detail.
When you see stories, and I was laughing today, I was looking at it. Said there was talk, I guess, during training camp, he was threatening to cut somebody if they didn't pass a conditioning test, that sort of stuff. Is that a different mindset? You talk about being direct. I mean, is that an example that you would point to and say, that's an example of the difference between him and maybe a Pete Carroll that might be more of a player's guy and might be willing to massage that situation a little differently?
I think that there was a lot of stuff that happened behind the scenes with Pete, right? That you just don't know. You don't know how those conversations would go. I know that Mike Macdonald expects a certain level of effort on all things. Part of that is his dad was in the military. Part of that is he wants to win every single down. I mean, he is just an ultra intense personality, and he sets the expectation and wants you to rise to that expectation. I think some of being direct is also, though, in the vulnerability. We talk to him on Wednesdays. He does press conferences on Fridays after games and then again on Monday. And there have been a number of times where he has answered questions saying, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that I have the right response for that. I don't know what to say, because I haven't seen enough in the league, or I don't want to make a blanket statement. That's as much being direct as anything else, is being vulnerable enough to say, look, I'm still trying to figure this out, and we'll try to do this together.
On the road in Detroit coming up here for this team. 3rd and longs, got to avoid them. Too many penalties on offense. These are obviously things that he knows they have to address, because despite the fact that they're 3-0, they're not without their warts.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And 11 penalties.
And goodbye, everybody.
That is not going to cut it. Right. Now, it is interesting to hear him talking about that, because there's some penalties that he is willing to deal with. If it is an effort penalty,
right,
that is a distinction between a pre-snap penalty. Right. And some of that is, positions that the defense got in. Some of it is happening on the line of scrimmage that shouldn't happen. Yeah, you can't do that. The offensive line needs to come out stronger and be more consistent. It's been kind of interesting. The last time the Seahawks were on the road, it was actually the defense that started pretty slow, and they couldn't quite figure out what was happening there and why it took them the first half of football to get into things. But I would say if you had to look at this team, you're probably looking at what the offensive line has done. It took a while to get those yards on the ground. Last week was Zach Charbonnet. We don't know the status of Ken Walker at running back. And I think that there's some questions on the interior of the defensive line. We don't know the status of Leonard Williams yet, or Byron Murphy. And you are going to have to stop a team that is a heavy run team in the Lions.
Jenn Mueller, she works on the sidelines pre and post on the radio broadcast for the Seahawks. My friend, I always appreciate it. We'll see you on Root Sports. Be well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We're coming back. We welcome you back to this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. We've talked a lot in recent days about concussions. Tua Tagovailoa's situation, obviously, bringing that to the forefront. Now you hear the story of Brett Favre, Parkinson's, what role could have the numerous concussions he suffered throughout his career, diagnosed and otherwise, have played a factor in that. I thought it was a good idea to bring in Nick Esayian. He is the CEO of Light Helmets. They're one of 4 manufacturers that create helmets for the NFL. Nick Esayian and I had a conversation yesterday, a wide-ranging conversation on helmets, safety, all of that, youth, NFL, going around sort of all the different issues concerning safety. I wanted to give you a piece of that conversation right here on SportsWrap today. In doing my research for this conversation, I was shocked how many approved helmets. There's 12 different helmets that players have the option of using in a game. I figured it was 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 in terms of the style of helmet. I'm not talking about the look and all that. I'm talking about in terms of the brand and the model. There's 12 different helmets. I had no idea there were that many helmets. That alone shocked me.
Yeah, no, very true. Thanks for having me today, Jason, and look forward to chatting and jumping into the topic. The helmet space is crazy. And in the football helmet space, probably the most scrutinized piece of headgear on the planet. Maybe not the most expensive, but certainly the most scrutinized. And we saw it again this week, and that Devonta Smith hit was unbelievable. Brett was a hero of mine growing up, and he's got a tough road ahead, but I'm sure he's up for it, and his family will support him. But when you look at the helmet space, there's really only 4 companies that make football helmets. And the NFL has done a pretty good job of, putting a test in place. Obviously, it's looking backward at data that is in existence. And we're trying to take that data and we look even farther forward. But players have the option when they go in the equipment room of being able to pick whatever helmet they want. But the NFL has to approve it. And this is only in, NFL play. The equipment managers have to want to bring you in. And sometimes they have pre-existing relationships with vendors, so they'll leave someone off on the sideline. And then the player comes in and they want to learn about it. Sometimes the player wears it because the way it looks. Sometimes it's for safety. Sometimes it's, hey, your helmet weighs half as much. I want to save that weight because I want to perform better.
How long I know that this brand has been around since 2011. How long have you been approved by the NFL?
So initially we were approved in August of last year. And the NFL, for the first time in the middle of a cycle, meaning they test helmets once a year, they agreed to test our Gladiator helmet mid-season. It was August. We got it approved. The equipment managers were made aware of that. We had a couple players using it. But once a player selects a helmet early in the season, they're worried about playing football and staying healthy and the travel and everything that lays ahead. They don't make switches. This year, our new helmet was approved in April. We've even got more helmets that'll get tested this coming December. And the helmet that we have on field right now is on Cam Jordan at the Saints, Darius Robinson, the Cardinals, Tyrod Taylor, a bunch of others. And the remarkable thing is, this is the first helmet that's really that checks all the boxes from a safety perspective, but also helps with player performance. But we're having retired players that have come and approached us from, Drew Stanton, Tony Romo, who've gotten involved in the company. And it's pretty exciting for us when people that have that experience are able to go to younger players and the youth players and say, hey, this is the new technology for the future.
Do you have a way to get around these equipment managers and these teams that might have these pre-existing relationships and might be trying to shut out competition? Do you go to agents? Do you go to the Players Association? How do you get your product in front of players when you have those sorts of roadblocks?
That's a great question. And we're ready for you to start working here because you realize that it can be a problem, right? So the equipment guys fall in 3 groups. They're the guys that are super conservative. They've got their relationships. They want to wait and see. Then you've got the group that's like, we'll try it. And if somebody asks, we'll give it to them. And then there are the equipment guys, and I'll use the Lions as an example. They went out and bought 25 helmets because they said, man, this is the next generation, latest, greatest. So what we end up doing is we go to all the equipment managers, we educate them, we get them up to speed. We offer to come in and show them and their staffs and the players, why would you want to wear this? Why is the technology better? Here are all of our doctors that support this, and here's where we are with the NFL. But at the same time, player agents make money when the player makes money. And there are a lot of deals that are not guaranteed deals. And if you're a example, let's say you're a Brock Purdy, you're in the 3rd year of your deal, and you're making $900,000 a year, and next year you might make $50 million a year, right, coming out of that contract.
Sure.
Do you want that guy to get 2 concussions in a year? So the agents a lot of times approach us. Family members will approach us, girlfriends, parents, the financial guys from top tier, top 1 or 2 quarterbacks in the NFL. They'll call us and say, hey, we're interested in looking at this. So now you have to cajole the equipment manager when all of a sudden someone else shows up, at their window saying, hey, the agent called and now the light helmet needs to be in the locker room. That doesn't always go over well. So we're learning the different wins of the different people that are involved, and you kind of shepherd people together and you educate them. We really rely on our doctors a lot. And we've got 14 docs on our advisory board, neurologists, orthopedic surgeons, an NFL doc, Tal David, who was a head doc on the Chargers, to help educate the different people, because the people that buy a helmet are a lot different than the people that wear it in terms of their wins and why they want to purchase a helmet.
There's a lot that I want to get into with you as it relates to helmet technology and sort of both on the professional level and on the youth level. So we're going to continue the conversation. Nick Esayian is the CEO of Light Helmets. Again, the conversation revolving around head trauma, concussions is something that is extremely prevalent in the NFL. It's also prevalent in other sports, and I want to ask Nick about that as well. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to do on Sports Wrap. We've got something to consider. Sam Yarnell will rejoin the fray next. Sports Wrap moves to segment 5 on this Thursday, and that means something to consider. Sam Yarnell. Something to consider, Sam. WNBA, all sweeps in the opening round, including Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, who damn near won Game 2 in Connecticut against the Connecticut Sun on Wednesday night. Clark showed up. She showed out. And, boy, there were a lot of Fever fans there. 2 quick things I want to say on this. 1, the WNBA needs to go to a best of 5 in the opening round. It's best 2 out of 3 where the home game doesn't even get a game, where the road team doesn't even get a game, the lower seed doesn't get a game in the series. That's a problem. And I'm not one of these people that are saying this because, I wanted to see Caitlin Clark and them get a game in Indiana. Yeah, that would be nice. But now you're a league with a bigger platform, a bigger audience. You're expanding your number of teams in your league. It's time to expand the playoffs just a little bit. If it means starting the season a little earlier so you can do that, then do that. Because now you're starting to bump into NHL, arena issues, the NBA. I get it. Move the season, start it a little earlier. I think that's something that can make all involved happy. The second thing is this. The WNBA put out a statement last night regarding racism towards black players in the league, and particularly in light of some of the issues that have happened concerning Caitlin Clark, where people have perceived hard fouls against her and have used that to justify what is unjustifiable, and that is racism towards the black players in this league. The WNBA put out a statement last night. They have been a miserable failure on this front. This is a statement that should have been put out months ago when these types of things were happening to players around the league. There have been countless examples of it. The WNBA dropped the ball in a big way. Just putting this statement out now, literally when Caitlin Clark has been eliminated from postseason contention, or from the rest of the postseason, as if to say, well, Caitlin Clark's out of the league now. We don't mind alienating those fans. We don't mind going after those fans that might have been Caitlin Clark fans that were tossing out, racist memes of all different kinds towards black players in the league. Sam, a quick word, and then I want to get over to the UNLV story.
Yeah, I mean, listen, just the main thing is with regard to the 5-game series in the first round, we're at a point with the WNBA where you're seeing it with the attendance numbers in these playoffs. People will come out to these games. It is in the best interest financially of this league to expand these playoff series because they'll draw more people and make more money, Jason.
Yeah, it is. UNLV, the plot thickens when it comes to the Matthew Sluka story. A whole bunch of activity around this yesterday. You have UNLV saying, no, We lived up to every promise we were supposed to with Matthew Sluka. There's this idea that some are saying, hey, just because they started off 3-0, he went and demanded more money. He's saying that's not the case. The bottom line is, and I tweeted this out yesterday on X, get everything in writing. Always get everything in writing. He may very well have been made a promise of $100,000, but unless it's in writing, it's worthless. And the fact that any agent or any NIL agent or representative of his allowed him to go into a situation where he didn't get something in writing and then is upset about the fact that he didn't get paid when he didn't have it in writing, that's on you, dude. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting story and development as we kind of continue in this new era of NIL money. It's so funny. Everyone seems to be interested in this story, Jason. I was talking to, weirdly enough, my girlfriend last night because she sat me down and she was like, how does all this work out in a day and age of NIL? Like, you can't put the cat back in the bag, but you're just going to have these kids redshirting 4 weeks into the season off of 1 bye in 3 games now going forward. And it's a good point. You're really right. We talked about it, yesterday on the show. You've got to reevaluate the way that red shirts are given out in the NCAA. That's really the only power that the NCAA has at this point. You can say, if you've been on the field for X amount of time and X amount of games through, this part of whatever sports season, you've foregone your red shirt. You've burned your red shirt, as it says. And obviously there would be exceptions for that for medical. And obviously if you're not getting that playing time, as we're seeing right now, as you're seeing with the UNLV running back, a kid transferring taking his red shirt this season now with the intention to transfer because he simply wasn't getting the ball enough. He transferred in, didn't get the touches that he wanted, wasn't getting paid NIL money, but on the same day, or I guess the day after Matthew Sluka announces his departure at the 11th hour, the starting, or I guess
Number
one
4,
of the three-headed monster of running backs that UNLV has used this year, because that rushing attack is so dynamic, announces he's going to take his red shirt as well. This is going to create a lot of narratives around UNLV, but what I think is most important for folks to understand is the following. Haj Malik Williams is coming in to replace Matthew Sluka as the UNLV quarterback. From everything I've heard, it seems like the former Campbell, who threw for 26, or who had 26 total touchdowns last year compared to only 8 interceptions, has a grasp of that locker room. I do think that UNLV will continue this incredible G5 undefeated streak that they've got. Jason, I would still look at them to make the playoffs. I know that there were predictors out there yesterday giving them a 16% chance. I'd take it. I think Haj Malik Williams leads this team to victory.
What's the Campbell, by the way? You're going to explain that to me sometime?
Oh my gosh! As a guy who on his show almost every day of the week has a Hofstra University alum, I am disappointed in you for not knowing every single one of the CAA's mascot. Shout out to the Campbell Camels. They've got a good baseball program too.
I hate being in the camp of having to agree with Clay Travis ever. No sport has complete free agency where you can just walk out whenever you want. We're coming back. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Don't forget, you miss anything from the show? Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available. All our favorite podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch more. We're about to get to odds and ends. Why are you making faces? Why are you making faces?
You'll find out when we get to the second half of this segment, because it's something that I can just not wrap my head around, but we'll get there.
Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, no more interruptions. It's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. We've got ourselves a Thursday night football game to kick off week 4 in the NFL. We talked about it to start the show. We talked about it to finish the show. Giants and Cowboys tonight. I have been killing it in primetime games so far this season. The Jets and Niners notwithstanding in week 1. The Giants plus 5.5. Plus 215 on the money line. Cowboys minus 260. A lot of juice there for a team that's 1-2 and has looked awful in their last 2 games. The total 45.5 according to our friends over at FanDuel. All right, what do you like?
I can't believe I'm about to say this. I like the Giants. And I don't just like them. I love the Giants. I think the Giants could win this game outright.
What?
Yeah, this is. You and I talked about it in, the opening segment of the show that long ago. Neither of these teams is going to win this game. Neither of them are. But I believe a lot more in the Cowboys to lose this game than I do the Giants to lose this game, let alone by more than 6 points. Simply put, the way that the Giants have played so far this season has been gritty football. Hasn't been great, hasn't been fundamentally sound, but it's been gritty football, and it's gotten them to the record where they are. As Jason says, they're this close to being 2-1. I say they're this close to being 0-3. Doesn't matter. The Giants are, at least in week 4, in a good spot for where we thought they'd be and where the New York Giants were accustomed to them being over the last 5 years. I like the Giants in this game. I would probably touch the under. But what I like the most are both of these quarterbacks to throw an interception. Bet them each straight, -135 on Dak, -115 on Daniel Jones. Parlay them together in a little same game parlay action, +222. I like that too. A lot of picks coming in this game. And I'll take it a step further. I'm betting the Giants defense to score an anytime touchdown. +475 is the price I'm seeing on that. So give me Dak to throw a pick, make it a pick 6.
I love the Giants tonight getting 5.5. I like the over in this game because Cowboys defense has not been very good.
That's a good point.
You can score. You can score against this Cowboys team. So I'm going to go over on the Giants and the Cowboys. I'll take the Giants getting the 5.5. Maybe a little sprinkle on the money line at 215. There's a little bit of value there as well. And a must win for the Cowboys. I still have to think in my heart of hearts they find a way to win this game because they do need it so desperately. But we will wait and see. All right, any more bets on that? Because I want to get to any more. 10 and 5.
I'm trying to find. Oh, I like this.
10,
Giants over 19.5 is their team total. I'd take that to the bank. I think the Giants get to 20 in this game.
I think they get to 20 in the game as well. Last but not least, odds and ends. The end for Derrick Rose, whose career comes to an end after, what did we say, 16 seasons? Derrick Rose retiring, 723 games, something like that.
Oh, gosh.
What's the matter?
Now you're asking the hard questions.
All right. It's okay. It's close enough. So Derrick, he'll forgive us if we're off by a game or a season. Derrick Rose, obviously a former MVP in this league, a former Rookie of the Year, a 2-time gold medalist. Accomplished a lot. There will be a lot of questions about whether or not it is Hall of Fame worthy. As Sam always likes to point out, everybody makes the Basketball Hall of Fame. So Derrick Rose probably will. In a lot of other sports, I think he'd be a borderline guy.
Yeah, so 15 seasons playing for Derrick Rose, 16 seasons as a member of the league. Obviously missed all of that 2012-13 season with the ACL, and then most of the next season as well. The thing that I made the face at very early in the segment that I didn't realize until today, Derrick Rose obviously won the MVP, no question. Derrick Rose finished in the top 10 of MVP voting twice. Mm-hmm. You know when that other time was, Jason?
When was it?
2020, 2021. I do not remember Derrick Rose being a top 10 MVP player that year that he split between the Pistons and the Knicks. He was good. He was a 6th Man of the Year contender. He finished 3rd in the voting for that.
Had a really good year, actually. I do remember.
For MVP?
Yeah, he actually had a really good year. That was a real big comeback year for him. Injuries obviously robbed so much of what we would have seen from Derrick Rose. One of the great undersized guards to play this game alongside Allen Iverson. Wish him all the best in retirement. I'm glad he got to kind of walk away on his own terms. He could have kept playing if he wanted to and hung around for another year or two. He didn't need to. Good for him.
It's sad that so many athletic, insane freak of nature guards from that era, Derrick Rose, John Wall, I could keep going, had their careers ravaged by injuries. We were in for a decade of really fun basketball.
It's a hard game to play for guys that size. Thank you, Nick Esayian, Jenn Mueller, David Aardsma, you, Sam Yarnell. We'll see you back here on Friday. Thursday Night Football recap and a whole bunch more. Page versus the Prince, too. We'll see you then.